Hi everyone, Jessica Parker here with Dissertation by Design. I'm here with my team, Desi and Veronica, and we want to take just a moment to go over some of the questions that you submitted when you registered for the Surviving the Dissertation workshop a few weeks ago. I know our time was cut short, so today we're going to go through some of those questions and just let you know how we would respond if we had actually had time at the end of the workshop. I'm going to share my screen with you, and then we're going to interact as kind of a panel, talking through the questions together. Let's get started. All right, here we are. These are some of the questions that you guys submitted when you registered for the workshop. And we just have a bulleted list here of what some of our responses are, and we're going to talk through them together. Great, team. So let's talk through what are the common errors found in dissertations prior to submission.
We have alignment listed here, and what that has to do with is the alignment between your problem, your purpose statement, and your research questions. But also, any place that you mention those items, you have to make sure that you are being consistent with what you are conveying to your reader. And that means consistency in your language too.
And next we have framing the gap. So we often hear people talk about what's the gap? What are you studying? What's missing? And often people have done the work to frame the gap in their mind, but for some reason when it gets onto the paper, it'll just be something like, there is no research on, arts integrated research in STEM or something like that. It'll just be like, it's vague. And so when we frame that gap, we really want to get into the what is known as well as the what is not known. And we want to be using scholarly literature to support the gap. And I'll go ahead and jump into the next one since I do a lot of work with our lit review. When I read a literature review and I start seeing a paragraph that begins with, in 2013, Richter et al. Said this, and then the next paragraph is, Richard et al. Studied this, and it just is going paragraph by paragraph by paragraph, and it looks like somebody took their annotated bibliography and dumped it into paragraph form. That's when I know they haven't actually thought through the synthesis and really started putting the literature in conversation and coming up with these new ideas of their own that they're putting in a good topic sentence and then reviewing the studies. And so really synthesizing and bringing your voice to that literature review is very, very key.
Yeah, and I love something that we've said before about, what is synthesis is it really is creating a new whole out of the parts. So this is where you're contributing your own ideas based on what you're learning within the literature. So it's not a summary of the literature. You're not just pointing out the ideas of other researchers. You're contributing your own ideas, and it's your take on the literature based on your perspective and how you're viewing the problem. And when there's a lack of synthesis, that's a major problem. It doesn't represent doctoral level writing when we see a lit review that's more of a summary. And then I'll jump on this one, lack of focus and specificity. This is a common error, especially when, we're reading a chapter 1 for the first time. In that introductory chapter, oftentimes students will introduce kind of multiple topics, or they're including peripheral information that's not really central to helping the reader understand their specific topic. And so that lack of focus and specificity can typically be addressed by starting with the problem statement first and just making sure in each section of writing that you're constantly focusing on the specific problem you tend to address and not bringing in peripheral literature that's distracting from the point that you want to make.
I would also say here, sometimes we use a lot of pronouns in our speaking with other people in general, and that tends to come out in our writing, and that causes the reader to wonder what this or that means, and that can really, see, I just did it there. Using these pronouns can really cause vagueness.
Mhm.
And so make sure that you're working on really using language of what you're wanting the reader to know.
Yep. So just to bring that even, we love to give little writing tips. Like if you can just replace that pronoun with a regular old garden variety noun, right? Or really, this, what, that, what, right? And just maybe try not to start a sentence with the word it, because it's going to get really old after a while.
Yeah, I tell some of my clients, if you know that you're prone to doing that, use the find and search feature in Word. And everywhere you have this, that, these, and those, go through, see what you're referencing, and replace it so that you're focused and specific. Yeah. All right, biggest pitfalls. So we could probably talk about many, many pitfalls, but we want to make good use of our time here. So we just highlighted a few pitfalls here that we tend to see. And I'll just go ahead and start with the first one. It's changing topics multiple times. And although while that may seem obvious why it's a pitfall, I'll just say that, throughout your coursework, you're learning so much, and it's tempting to chase after every interesting topic. But when you do that, you're almost starting from scratch. And so you need to start becoming an expert by giving yourself time to dive into the literature on your topic. So when you're switching topics continually and you're having to start that literature search over, you're setting back the clock. So try to choose a topic that you can stick with. And even though it might be tempting to jump ship and choose a new topic, really consider how much time you might be setting yourself back by doing that.
Yeah, and I always like to think about well, how can I avoid that pitfall? And I think one of the things that helped me is I would, at that very beginning of the process where I'm trying to choose that topic, I would just sit down and I would almost write a little letter to that topic, or I would say here's the problem. And then, I've always been wired a little differently. So I would then just sit with myself and I would say, okay, how am I feeling about what I'm writing? Am I bored, or am I tearing it up on the page? I have a lot to say about this topic already, or am I feeling in my heart, for me, when it was standardized testing and teachers who were teaching in these ways that they don't think are best, I was feeling fired up about that from the very beginning. And then if I had gone into the literature and found out that perhaps everything had been said and done and there was no more to be discussed or learned about this topic, which was not the case, then perhaps I would have needed to backtrack. But I would say get with your topic early on and enjoy the relationship that you have with your topic, and get into some of that sense and that feeling so that you can say okay, topic, you and I are going to go on this journey together, and I'm going to hang with you even when I'm really sick of you at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remembering why we got into the program and why we are on this journey to begin with, I think is really crucial, because our research is closely tied to who we are, whether we're a qualitative researcher or a quantitative researcher, mixed methods. We do matter because we see the world in different ways, and that's the beauty of research. So remembering those pieces where why is it that I'm kind of drawn to this topic can help you think through these ideas. Mm-hmm. And I'll just go into lack of communication with committee, because I think this was one of the things that I didn't do, not correctly, but I could have done better. I wanted to be perfect before I submitted any of my work to my chairs. And what that caused was they didn't have the opportunity to help me along the way. So making sure that you have that consistent communication with your chairs so that they can point you in the directions of other researchers or other seminal pieces of theory or whatever the case may be is very critical as you move forward.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, the communication with consistency is also giving them a heads up when you will be submitting work so they can go ahead and kind of think about where you'll fit into their calendar. Because I know as students, we tend to have this sense of urgency and we want feedback right away. And it's nice to give them a heads up and say, hey, I've been working hard on my lit review for the past month. I'm getting close to the end. I'm going to send you a draft next week. I just want to let you know it's about 40 pages. Give them some information so that they can be prepared. So it's not, hey, here's the lit review. I know you haven't looked at it in months, and hey, I really want feedback right away. So that's not great for the relationship with your committee. So be open about your plans and when you tend to send them drafts, and then be specific about what you're struggling with and what you need feedback on. And that communication is crucial, and it'll really come in handy in helping you move forward. Anyone want to jump in on unrealistic expectations?
Yeah, I guess it kind of goes with that communication with your chair and your committee as well. They can help you understand what's realistic and what's not. And, I was thinking that this thing that we call the dissertation was going to be much like some work in my master's program or even in some of my doctoral courses, but it's just not. It's totally different. And whether we do this type of writing again is pretty minimal, right? This type of writing is very unique to the dissertation. So knowing that you're going to be doing multiple revisions, I want to say I revised my chapter 1 at least 20 times, at least.
Yeah, and I think a good way to find out if we have an expectation that is perhaps unrealistic is thinking about where is frustration coming from. So frustration is going to come up in the process, frustration with ourselves, perhaps frustration with others, perhaps frustration with a piece of technology. And so whenever I feel a frustration, I can usually trace that back to some version of this should be blank, but it's actually blank. And so then I can tease out like, well, what's coming underneath that frustration? And well, should it really be this way? Or maybe just get to the, well, it is this way. So how can I problem solve around that in the future?
Yeah, exactly. And it's usually tied to expectations. They're just, maybe you're comparing your journey to someone else's and you think you should be moving as quickly as they are, but you're not considering all the unique variables in your life and their life. So yeah, kind of getting underneath that frustration and getting curious about it to see what might be causing that discomfort. All right, what do you wish you had known when you were just starting this process? I'll just jump in and say that struggle and challenge equals learning. And, time is going to pass anyway. So you're going through this journey. You've decided to embark on this journey, and you can either struggle and trudge through all of it, or you can recognize that this is a period of immense personal and professional growth, and it's a learning experience. And you can view that struggle and challenge as either neutral or something positive. It's a learning experience.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I didn't realize how much I would grow and how much I would learn through this whole process and grow in ways that I never thought I ever would. I didn't really know what being a researcher would be and what it would be like. And now it's one of the best parts of my life. So that is just, I have a lot of pleasure in thinking about the before doctoral work me and the after work. So I hope that you will experience that soon.
Yeah, I think that just gets right back into the, it's kind of like, sometimes it's good to not know as well. Like I think about this time commitment. I'm like, well, if I had known that at the outset, maybe I would have just like stepped away. But what happened to me was that I fell in love, right? And I just mean that I fell in love with the process of the learning and the growth. And it's like every step of the way was not passionate, but there was something guiding it. And it was that why. And so I think if I had known, it's not on here, but like if I had been able to really name my why a little bit earlier, because like for me, things happen in the heart, and then I'm able to meaning make around them. And so I think I then realized somewhere along the way, and I tell the story of like somebody suggesting that I quit, and I just got like I drew myself up to my full height and was like, no way, because I need my why. And so that why helped me during those parts where it was confusing. And so I think I wish I had known that the confusion was normal, and then to have that tool for setting aside the confusion at the end of the day and giving myself the kindness to say, I'm confused right now. That's normal. And I have tools in my toolbox to help me navigate the confusion, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say too, just real quick here, and this probably goes down with the next one as well, but recognizing the people around you and this social aspect of our learning, and that we need other people to bounce ideas off of. I mean, I remember going to coffee shops and maybe sitting at a bar occasionally and just talking through with one of my colleagues about what I wanted to do, and those were the moments where I had these aha situations, and it gave me the encouragement to move forward. So that social aspect is really something to recognize and build for yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then to kind of jump into this next question, how to best prepare for navigating this process. I'm just going to touch on the time management habits because this is fresh in my mind because I was just speaking with someone about this who had really been struggling to find the time to write. And when we really dove into the conversation, he was just expecting for his dissertation to like find a place in his life. He wasn't carving out time each week. And in his mind, it was like, okay, well, just when I'm done with work or when I have time on the weekend, I'm going to work on my dissertation. And I said, no, you're going to work on your dissertation for several years. So why don't you say, hey, these are the times each week I'm putting it into my calendar where I'm going to close off my email, shut off my phone, get away from distractions, and just search the literature and write. It's not just going to happen. You have to manage, you have to develop that time, set aside that time, and start developing those habits now. And then when you're done, you'll have all this time to dedicate to something else. But if you want to get this done, then creating that space within your schedule consistently is incredibly important.
Yeah, that's interesting, Jessica. It's kind of like recognizing that we are in control. Because I think much of the dissertation we sometimes feels like it's happening to us instead of us actually playing a part in this. And that's one of those things where we're recognizing that, hey, I'm in control of this, and I can say when I'm going to do this, and start developing those habits of habits of mind. I really like that.
Yeah, it really is a unique process, and I think the more we can feel like there is ownership of it, even though many people are looking at our work and there's so many cooks in the kitchen here, right? But there are ways that we can say, okay, like the time management, not only are we blocking out that time, but I think about this idea of like creating like going pro with it. And it's like in this moment, I'm stepping into this space and I have an appointment with my dissertation self. And it's just as important as like if I were in a meeting with my boss, and like 12 emails came in or this, that, and the other thing, like other than an emergency, like I'm in a meeting in that moment. So we set aside the time, but then we get to honor the time. And why do we do that? Because it's important to us. And I think that some of that ownership can also dovetail into this next one about, it's like, it is a process, but it is your journey. And Jessica touched on this earlier about we want it standardized. And I understand that there's coursework that we're going through and there are timelines, but you're not getting someone else's dissertation,
Right.
doctorate. You're getting yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an artful way to look at your life and to work with your life and work with your experiences and with your strengths and your family and
Mm-hmm.
your job, and work with it to get in the stream so that there's not so much struggle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and resisting that urge to compare, because we hear that all the time. That doesn't serve you. You can't control someone else's journey. You can only control your own, to not even obviously full extent. Only some things are under your control. So just resist that urge to compare your journey to someone else's.
And your writing. Like,
And right.
because if you're in that writing, you go, oh my gosh, they said it this way, they did it that way, their draft is so much, but no, like every writing has a thumbprint.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're all doing the same type of thing in
Mm-hmm.
scholarly writing, like it's going to come out of your body differently. So let it come out as you.
Mm-hmm.
I would say err on the side of yes, support, but let it come out as you. And we can always go back and revise it later. But when you try to sound like someone else, you don't want to write it. And quite frankly, I don't want to read it. So be your scholarly self, and you can shape the writing to be highly academic and complex, but be you.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, Desi. You know, we've talked about it before with Anne Lamott and getting that shitty first draft out there. How important that is, to just put yourself out there. You can go back and make things, you know, refine your ideas and things like that, but you've got to get things down on paper, whether it's in a table or could be a visual, right? Some kind of visual, or you could leave a voicemail to yourself about what you're thinking, and then you write off of that. There are many things where you can just get your ideas down, and that's, I think, super important as you move forward.
Yeah, just have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, last question. What are some organization tips when a topic is continually tweaked? I'll just start because I added the last one. Sometimes as writers, when we're getting feedback within a long document that we've spent a lot of time writing, we force ourselves to try to make revisions within that document, and we're moving around sentences and sections of writing, and it can get pretty confusing. We can start to feel really lost. And if that's happening to you, or if you're reading through a draft or you're being told that there are too many different topics and the organization needs to be improved, then just open up a new Word document with the headings that need to be there based on your template, and strategically pull in the information for the new topic or the slightly revised topic from the old draft, instead of forcing yourself to continue to work within this draft that probably feels pretty messy. It sounds really simple, but we do it all the time with our clients. You just start working in a new clean draft, and you pull in all that relevant information and just leave what no longer belongs based on the new topic.
Yeah, I think I actually remember doing this with my chapter 1. I am a very tactile person and very hands-on. So I cut apart all of my pieces of chapter 1. And if it went in one pile, I put it in one pile and then put it in another. So the topics were all different. It's kind of going off of this, you know, what are the purposes of each section that you're writing, and then making sure that those, that writing is in those sections, and anything that's not on that purpose goes to somewhere else. You know, you can save it for later. But that really helped me move forward and helped me realize how I was putting things in the middle of paragraphs that didn't have anything to do with them. So that might help, or you could color code as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like when we think about that purpose, we're always trying to center ourselves as a writer here. It's so easy to get lost in the process and feel like we're just like dumping things into a document. And so if you take that purpose, so like if it's the significance section, for example, as a writer in the significance section, I am attempting to what? Show that the problem matters. how am I going to show that the problem matters? Well, I'm going to perhaps show that it's very large in scope. I'm going to show that this research is addressing this problem in a way that matters. I'm really going to get into the why. And then when I go to write, I'm like, okay, I think I've got my wits about me, and I can start building out those topic sentences, and every one of them can, in my mind, begin with, you know, this research matters because, and then I pull in my data. And so it keeps me straight, it keeps me square if I know what I'm trying to accomplish in those sections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point, Desi. Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing here. We made it through your questions, and I really hope that you found this helpful. We really enjoyed taking the time to dive into these questions and come together as a team to answer them. And I'll just kind of leave it by saying, if you need anything moving forward, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us at hello@dissertationbydesign.com. Do you guys want to add anything? We're good? Nope.
Yes.
Signing off. Thanks.
See you soon.